Pialinochime, namansin, timomachtise, tlamachtili, mahtlaktli wan eyi. Hey everyone, today we're going to be studying lesson 13. So the main topics for today is going to be a tense that we call the Yaya tense in the Huasteca, also known as ya in other varieties. So this is going to mean that you used to do something. We'll also see a couple words that have reduplication, and a little bit of that, and how to talk about going to the restroom and all the restroom vocabulary you've ever wanted to know. Okay, so first off, reduplication. The word nemi, we have the word nemi, which in older Nahuatl and modern Nahuatl can imply anything from to be alive, but also to be out and about, doing something, out and about, right? That's kind of like andar in Spanish. Now, if I reduplicate it, it's going to be reduplicating the first part, which is ne. So it's going to be neh and then nemi. Neh, nemi. So reduplication is going to be something we're going to see a lot in Nahuatl. Neh, nemi is the reduplicated form of nemi. So neh, nemi means to walk. To walk. Ita is to see something just once. Ita implies that you're seeing something over and over again, several times. Notza is to shout for someone, to get their attention. You're calling out to someone. Notza implies that you're calling them over the phone, because you're kind of calling them several times over and over again, with the help of a phone, of course. Nawa is to carry something on your shoulders. Nahnawa is to hug someone. Nahnawa. Because you're kind of like carrying them in your shoulders, with your shoulders in a sense. So just pay attention to those. If you see it, you'll see the pattern, like nahnawa. Notice how it has an H oftentimes. There's also reduplication without an H. But for now, just look at these that have an H. It makes it obvious that if you see a syllable reduplicating itself and an H in there, there's a good chance that the root word is actually going to be over there, inside of there. That it's a reduplicated word. All right, your restroom is cuaterno. Cuaterno. Now, in ancient, in the big Mayan cities and the Aztec cities, typically, and even in other parts of ancient Europe as well too, oftentimes people, when you lived in big urban cities, there was no such thing as toilets, obviously back then. Not everyone dug a giant pit in the hole like people did later. So a lot of times people had they used something, a latrine. They used oftentimes people used a pot, and that's where you take care of your business. And then over time, when it was time, you take that pot and dump it out to where it needs to be dumped. So that's why we're not going to have an exact room for restroom, right? Even think about it in English, it's called the room for rest, the restroom, the room for rest. Or the bathroom implies the room for taking a bath. So our restrooms in the American English concept is oftentimes a place where you can both take a shower and take care of business. But keep in mind that in other countries, they don't necessarily merge those two things together. Sometimes, like in Japan, the place where you use the restroom is different from the place where you take a shower oftentimes. So, so basically keep that in mind when you're trying to translate something. You're not going to find an exact equivalent for restroom or bathroom. Okay? So, and there are no rooms typically in indigenous villages where you go to that room to take care of business. Even my parents, when they grew up on a farm in Mexico, and they came from they actually came from a town that used to be a native town, but nowadays it's more of a mixed heritage kind of town. But they grew up in what we call the rancho, in the ranches, and even though back then they didn't have restrooms, they took care of business in the cornfields where no one can see you, and they didn't have neighbors because they lived out, far away from people, in the middle of the in the middle of the fields. So yeah, so there was no need to construct a building to take care of business if you could just do it next to the corn leaf. Now, when it's time to pick up the corn, you just want to watch where you're stepping, of course. But yeah, there was no such thing as that. Now, more today, you'll see indigenous villages do have either an outhouse, so a little mud house with a giant pit in the bottom. Now, I've seen an American step on there and almost crumble it and almost fall down because American weights oftentimes are different. But and you'll see people who have toilets now with some people have a little bit of not they'll have a place where the like a septic tank system where it can at least where you can at least expel all that water. So our word for toilet in or bathroom in the Huasteca is cuaterno. And what this literally means is the edge of the forest, for the reasons that I talked about just now. So ten references your atently, which is your lips or your edge. Remember to say my lips is no ten shipal. The root though is ten, which is your lip, your edge. So ten means the edge, qua means the woods or the forest from quawit, and the no is actually ko. It's actually cuatenco. But instead of saying cuatenco, it becomes cuatenno. So the sound changes. So this is true in the Huasteca. Other varieties might not necessarily understand it. If you say it to other varieties, they might say, and you say, I'm going to the restroom, and you're literally saying, I'm going to the edge of the forest, they might laugh. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so Mashisha is to take care of business. Class 2, and it's actually going number 2 as well. Mashisha. You're doing it to yourself. So shisha is the root, but Neemo because you're doing it to yourself. Mashisha. Okay? If you put in an at in front of that shisha, it becomes Ashisha. And now you're expelling things from your body, but it's water. So that means to pee. So Neemo. So this is Mashisha, which is Neemo plus Ashisha. Mashisha. But an interesting thing happens here. If you say Mashisha and you're blending in that mo, right? The o drops here. Mashisha. There's no o here. Mashisha, that means I'm going to the restroom. I'm peeing. Mashisha. I'm gonna pee. But if I say mo ashisha and I'm emphasizing the mo myself, I'm really emphasizing that mo, that I'm doing it to myself. So now you're implying that you peed on yourself. So Mashisha is probably what you want to say 9 times out of 10. And 1 times out of 10, you might say mo ashisha. The urine itself is going to be called ashishtli. Ashishtli. That's the urine itself, just the object by itself. Quitlatl is excrement, poop. Quitlatl. Quitlatl. Okay, so that's your restroom vocab. Now let's go to the main section, which is yaya. Yaya is a tense ending, kind of like the past tense, but this implies you were doing something. I was doing something. She was doing something. We were doing something. They were doing something. So that's I was doing something. So here, Yaya talks about actions that you used to do that were happening. And if you're using the regular past tense, like k or ki, the one we've talked about before, the regular past tense, you're just implying that it happened and finished, or it happened once, or it ended. So that's kind of like your more generic past tense, while yaya is just emphasizing that it was going on for a time. And maybe you're not doing it anymore. So yaya means both what you used to do and what you were doing. So it can also mean I used to do this. I used to do blank. I used to play this game. I used to watch this show. So ninechnemi is I walk. Ninechnemi yaya is I was walking. I was walking. Notice how with the past tense we had to do all these things. We had to This class 2, we had to take out the I, change the M to an N, and become ninenki. But we don't do any of that with Yaya. So Yaya is pretty easy to use. Nothing's gonna change except for class 3. But let's see some more. Choka, ni choka Yaya. Easy. Just put on the Yaya. Ni choka Yaya. I was crying. Titlaqua, you eat. Titlaqua Yaya, you were eating. You were eating. Titlaqua, with an H. This means we are eating. Titlaqua Yaya, we were eating. So the plural for Yaya is Yaya. Just add an H. Very easy plural. So yeah, again, the rule is add Yaya for the singular, add Yaya for the plural. Now, if it ends in Ia or Oa, just take out the A. You're not changing it to an H, like in the past tense. You're just taking out the A. Now, what happens if the verb just happens to end in a ya already? Like the word chiya, like ni means chiya, I wait for you. It already ends in a ya. So what would we say? Ni, I was waiting for you. Would I say ni means chiya yaya? Ni means chiya yaya? A lot of ya. Or would I just say ni means chiyaya? And you actually have an option. It's optional. You could extend it and say ni means chiyaya or ni means chiyaya. It's you got an option there to do. So let's see some examples from each class of verbs. Class 1, nitemok. This is where we add a K. But with yaya, it would be nitemo yaya. So no change. No change to the root of the verb. Class 2, nikchishki. I waited for him. Nikchishki. In yaya, it's nikchiya yaya. Nikchiya yaya or nikchiyaya. There's a little typo there, excuse that. Nikpalewi, class 3, I helped him. Nikpalewi. Class 3 for yaya, nikpalewi yaya. Nikpalewi yaya. Class 4, nitlacuahki, I ate. No change for yaya. Nitlacua yaya, I was eating. So, take your dictionary word form and just add on the yaya. There's no special thing you gotta do except for ia or oa. Okay, so you try. How would you say I was walking? I was walking. So walking is nechnemi. It'd be ni nechnemi yaya. Ni nechnemi yaya. How'd you say you were telling her? You were telling her. To tell someone is ihlia, or you could say ihlia too. So ti ilwia becomes tikilwia. Tikilwia. Tikilwiyaya. Tikilwiyaya. She was joking with me. To joke with someone is kamanaloa. Kamanaloa. So towards she jokes with me is nech kamanaloa. Now I'm gonna say she was doing it. Nech kamanalo yaya. Nech kamanalo yaya. Nech kamanalo yaya. She was joking with me. We were studying. Timomachtiah is we are studying. Timomachtiah. Yaya. Timomachtiaya. Timomachtiaya. We were studying. Y'all were sleeping. In kochi is y'all sleep. In kochiyaya. Y'all were sleeping. In kochiyaya. They were writing. They were writing something down. Tlahquiloas to write. Tlahquilo yaya. Tlahquilo yaya. They were writing. See these examples and think, would you use the past tense or would you use yaya tense? I saw you. That happened once. That would be the past tense. We ran here. That happened once. That would be the past tense. I loved you. Well, I loved you means if you're saying I used to love you, you could say Yaya here. If you say I loved you with the past tense, it's kind of implying it happened once and it's over. I was taking a shower is a clear indication of use the Yaya tense here. They showered. It happened once, past tense. We were working when she came in. Here we would use the Yaya tense. You jumped. Happened once, past tense. She was jumping. Use the Yaya tense. Okay, here's another exercise y'all can do. Put it in the comments here down below. Here's some example words, and you can make up a sentence with Yaya. I'll help correct y'all with if I see any errors or let you guys know if you did a good job. So if you've been following along, you got nothing to lose. All right. Well, hope y'all give that a try. And Tlaskamati, I'll see y'all for the next lesson. Timoitase. Nos vemos. We will see each other.